you're never alone. And that's what I hope that my book would come across as, letting people know that they're never alone when it comes to addiction, mental illness.
Conversations with indie authors.
So what inspired you to write this book?
No, I don't know what the other answers were that I gave in other podcasts with other great interviewers. And the first thing that came to mind, boredom. At first I was like, that's the first thought that came to my head, but and maybe that's partly true. What I would like to think and feel, what I feel is that it was to help me, but I wanted to help others. I got into intimate details of my life, and there was a lot of struggle over doing that and putting some of the things I put in there. But I thought, you know what? If I don't, just put it out there, there might be someone out there that feels like, well, this is kind of okay, but I've done things that are worse and this and that. And I was kind of hoping to bring it to a level where someone could identify with it. And I hope that was my hope, but it was to help others and help myself, I guess,
Mm-hmm. How do you feel that your book helps others and yourself?
Well, that's a hard question for me. I don't know how it helps others, other than to say my mantra, I guess, would be you're never alone. And that's what I hope that my book would come across as, letting people know that they're never alone when it comes to addiction, mental illness, and whatever I had put in my book. It's hard to say what would affect certain people. I've had feedback, and one of the things is, gosh, you spilled your guts out. Geez, that's something. That took courage, and I don't look at it that way. Sometimes I look at it as, geez, was that foolish? But I know what was in my heart when I wrote it, and when it was over and done with, I thought, well, I hope it helps somebody, if it helps one person. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
I had this awesome guy, Terry Tucker, on my podcast, and he was telling me, I'm like, I've done a lot of things in my life. He was talking about how your purpose can constantly change throughout life. You can have one purpose for a while, and then maybe be, a writer, and then you're a singer, whatever the case may be. You just keep moving along, but it's important to find your purposes and continue going. I think that is very true. I mean, we live so much, and then sharing our own personal stories really makes a difference, and you never know what part of that is going to affect others. Sometimes they tell you, and sometimes you never know, but it deeply affects other people.
Yeah, and an example of my life which rings true for what you just said was I worked in corrections for 19 years, and I'd been to different facilities, and one of the last facilities I worked at, this was back in the late 90s, was a shock incarceration facility that it had parole, drug treatment, and corrections. Working with inmates who had been they violated through drug use. They violated their parole through drugs or alcohol, and they were sent back. Instead of sending them to jail again, they wanted to have a model that may really represent rehabilitating or changing them. And so I went through that. I was a drill instructor for a while, and I was in the Navy in the service. So, a lot of the guys that were officers that were involved in that were in the Marines and Army. And, I tried to, match up to their drill instruction stamina and stuff. But it was fun in that way. But I got into networking, which worked more closely with the inmates in groups and stuff. And I enjoyed that. But years after I got out of corrections, it was, I'd say about 5 or 6 years after I left corrections, maybe even longer. I was in a convenience store, and I'm getting ready to pay. I'm standing behind someone, and I feel someone tap me on the shoulder. And it was this guy, kind of scared me. I didn't know who he was. And he says, "Hello, Mr. Moffe." And I said, "Hello." And I didn't know who it was. And he says, "Well, I recognize you, and I know you probably don't recognize me, but I want to thank you for what you did. You helped me a lot when I was at Willard." And I go, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I'm glad I helped you, you know." And I tried to remember, and I vaguely remembered him, but you never know who you're gonna touch, like you said, or affect. And you know, I hope that is with my book. My book, it's gotten good reviews, and as far as
Mhm.
ordering it and Goodreads. So who knows? I just keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah. Do you have the audiobook out?
Yes, as a matter of
Okay.
fact, I do. It's on Audible.
Mhm.
Thank you for bringing that up, Brittany. I almost forgot about that.
So can you tell us a little bit about your book then?
Well, it's an inside job, kid. It's my memoir about the trauma that I went through when I was a child, and it wasn't only at home. I had seen there was car accidents. I'd witnessed a man burned to death in his car, and I was probably maybe 12 years old. Saw another guy the following year, or might have even been, no, I think it was the following year, um, who was killed on a motorcycle accident in front of my house. And, that for a 12, 13-year-old kid, that's trying to process that stuff about life and death is, that was interesting. But, and it also talks about my father, who um, was very physically and emotionally abusive. Uh, he was a good provider, and of course, uh, that's I sometimes feel like I'm making excuses for him, but he did his best. And of course, my mother raised seven of us, and he was always working. He wasn't home much, but through the experiences with his behavior as a child, that was traumatizing. Then it goes through where my life outside the home in the neighborhood with friends, getting in trouble, drinking, how my drinking began, and how I began, getting high and mixing all these things together, and getting in trouble and doing things that you normally wouldn't do if you weren't drinking. And then it gets into going into depression, where I went into started wrestling with depression, and also manicky. Um, then when I went into corrections, and how that re-traumatized, working in the prison system in New York State. And I shared some of the experiences that I had that affected me, and leaving that, and starting my family, and how it affected my family and kids. And right up until I was able to live out my dream, I went out to California, and eventually I made my way there. And I always loved acting, and I got into a little acting out there, and I did some work in New York, doing some plays, and then taking acting classes and improv classes. And I was in as a background actor in central casting in LA, and I got to be in quite a few TV shows, and that was like a dream come true. I mean, uh, my age, I just turned 65, by the way, and I uh, my heroes were Jimmy Stewart and Tony Curtis, and all those old time actors who weren't there by the time I got there at 50, but or 55. But I got to live my dream out. I was in movies and TV shows. I worked in the series with Betty White on Hot in Cleveland, uh, Chris O'Donnell and NCIS Los Angeles, uh, Hail Caesar that had George Clooney in it. And it was fun. But at a certain point, I realized, well, at this age, this is for a younger kind of person. I mean, I could have done it. There were older actors who got in very late in their life, but I guess the universe had something else planned for me. But I ended up coming back to Sedona, and I met my partner where we met in a cafe there. The Java Love Cafe was the name of it. But and that's
Perfect.
gone out of business now. But anyway, now I'm helping her. We're living together and helping raise her two grandchildren who are in her custody now. Their parents aren't in their life anymore. The mother a little bit, but so it pretty much brings it full circle to today. And the one thing I would caution, life doesn't, and it's something my mother said. I was complaining when I was a 20 something, saying life's hard. I don't get it. This has happened or that was happening. And she looked at me, she said, Steve, she goes, don't worry, it gets harder as you get older. But I'm here to tell you she's right. And it's not to discourage people, but just to prepare you that, as you get better through recovery and mental illness issues, and you improve, and you do if you disciplining yourself, the game gets bigger and it gets harder, but you do get better and you just keep going up. And that's pretty much, I guess, how it works. I just saw a quote, Brittany, and I wanted to share it with the listeners, was that I just read it this morning, as a matter of fact. And it went, let's see, it goes, in life, you'll either suffer the pain of discipline or regret. So it's like you make your choice. And that really spoke to me, because I'm not the most disciplined person in the world or in the neighborhood, anyways, not even in the neighborhood. But that's what it comes down to. It's a choice that you discipline yourself to get the things that you want, or if you don't, you're going to have lots of regrets. So
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. I think we all think that as we get older. Man, if I could go back and tell my younger self,
yeah,
here's the keys to life, man.
yeah, or go back where the same person I am now and go back in time and maybe make some better decisions. But yeah,
I would do it so different now.
yes, I learned, why can't this part of life happen? Why can't this be a part of life? Can't go back.
No,
Go
no,
back.
no. That's why we write these books, to help the younger generations.
Yeah, and I hope that's what I hope to do, these younger kids. And it's hard to tell your own kids that. They don't want to listen. They already have the answers and they pretty much think they're going to live forever. But
Yeah, until you get to a certain point, then you're like, oh, okay.
yeah, it's the proverbial 2x4 in the back of the head that the universe gives you when you don't pay attention to the pebbles it's been throwing you all along.
Exactly. But yeah, it's about resilience, and just knowing that no matter what comes at you, you can handle it.
Well, yes, and thank you for saying, as my book says, it's in the back of the book. You know, resilience lies within all of us, and that's true for all of us. But again, it's the choices we make that makes the difference, and who we have in our life, and I guess your belief in yourself. I think a lot of my struggles, or for better or worse, the negative things that I was told, even by my father, I chose to believe them. Whereas my brothers, all of them were successful. Every one of them. I don't consider myself not successful. It's in a different way than the rest of them. But one was a doctor, one was a captain in the state police. I mean, they all did well, but at that age and the influences I had, for whatever reason, I chose to believe that I wasn't worthy. I didn't have that self-worth that I needed to make right choices back at those times when I was younger. So,
Yeah,
but you can change.
you can change. You can change at any point. And go in any direction
Choice.
you choose.
It's a choice. One choice in the moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Stephen, if anything resonated with our audience today, how can they find you?
Well, my email is in the book. It's MOFFE, the number 1 at iCloud.com. And I welcome anybody who has any questions about writing a book, any questions about what I've learned through my process to get my message out there. And of course, the message itself about addiction, mental health, and what helped me get through the tough times. So, yeah.
Yeah. I thank you for coming on today and letting us take your time and getting to know you a little bit.
Well, thank you, Brittany. And I am so grateful that you asked me to be on, and it meant a lot to me, and it helps me every time that I can get out and talk and share in hopes that it'll help someone else out there. But
Yeah.
thank you so much, Brittany. I'm grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have a great day and a happy holiday season.
Happy holidays to you too, Brittany. Thanks a lot.
The Zarlequan Indiverse.